Hey everyone, welcome back. And as you know, in the last video, we were discussing how does the web work or how does the website work. And we are going to continue that particular topic in this particular video. And we are going to do one step little bit deeper. Okay, so let me pull my board here and I will show you what exactly we did in the last video so that you will have a little bit recap there. Okay, so we saw that we have the website, we have the server, and these are the type of the request we make to the server. We make the basic or doc request, which is the really first request. Then we make the static file requests, that is basically to get the JS file, CSS file, images, fonts, right? Then we make the ajax calls. Ajax call can be anything, like if you want to send some form to the server or to get some data from the server, right? That's the ajax call. Then we have WebSocket. We saw that WebSocket is like a pipe. If you want to constantly exchange data between server and website, they uses the WebSocket. The connection is alive and they can interact with each other and get the data, right? Then we saw the WebRTC. So what is WebRTC? WebRTC is like peer-to-peer connection. Suppose this is the one user, this is second user, and if they want to communicate, they can communicate without any middleman, like creating a pipe between them, right? So that's the WebRTC connection. Okay, so yeah, that's all we covered in the last video. That was a quick recap. So in this video, we are going to go little bit deeper, one step deeper. So in last video, we saw that these first requests is always the basic or doc request, right? So we are going to see what type of the request these all actions are making, what type of the request. So let me tell you what are the type of the request first. Okay, then we will go to the website and then we will do the practical. Okay, so first type is get. Okay, so what is this get type? Get types means I want something, I request that and get it. That's the get. Okay, so in, as I said, in the basic or first this request right here, only one type of the request happens, which is get. This is get type of request. Okay, so for simplicity, let's go to our website. Let's open the website. So this is the website right here. I will refresh the page here, and then I will right click on it. I will click on the inspect. That will open this particular nice dev menu. In dev menu, I will go to the network. Okay, so when we refresh the website, let me click on all. As you can see, the first call, which is this one, the fluxset.com call, is always a get call. So this request on our board, this request is always going to be the get request. Okay, so next type of the request is post request. By the way, the static file requests are also get requests. All of these static file requests are get requests. For simplicity, you can check here. As you can see, this is JS file, right? At the end there is a JS, so it's also the get, as you can see right here. If I scroll a little bit, as you can see, these are the CSS file, these are also get. If I scroll, you can see these images, these are also the get. Okay, so whatever we want to get from the server, we want it right here. That's the get request. The next type is post request, right? So let me type here post request, right? Post request is like if you want to send something to the server, that's the post request. Okay, when you want to send something to the server, we call the post request. So let's say that, let's go back to our website. Let's say I want to commit. Okay, so let's say this is email setup. Okay, so this is the email setup, the block, right? If I scroll right here and if I like reply here, let's type, is there any simple way? Okay, is there any simple way? That's the reply we want to type. So as soon as I click on reply, it should send the post request because it is sending data. Which data? This data to the server, that this guy has replied to this post with that data, right? So let's click on the reply, and as you can see, as soon as I click on reply, this request appear, the post request. If I make a little bit bigger, as you can see, the request method is post right here. And what is it sending? It is sending the raw variable is containing my question, is there any simple way, that I commented, right? And then there is a lot of additional data that require backend server to process. So these are the request post request basically. Okay, so let's go back to the board. So we are done with the post request. Then we have the put request. Okay, let's say post request is also sending data and put request is also sending data, but the post request is usually sent when we are doing something on the first time. Okay, so if I want to comment, I will say the post request. But okay, so what if I want to edit this particular reply that I have sent, right? So that will be the put request. Function is same, sending the data to the server. But if we are doing some modifications, the word modification is important. If you are doing something on first time, it will use post request. If you are doing modification on something, it will use put request. Okay, so here we are doing modification in the data. My initial comment was, is there any simple way? And my current comment is there any simple way? And let's say double question mark, right? That's my current request. So let's save edit, and as you can see, as I saved edit, it should send some update right here. Okay, let me check. Okay, yeah, this is the one. It is sending put request to the backend server. Okay, so as you can see, the request method is put and request URL is this one. Okay, so as you can see in the payload, we have, is there any simple way with double question mark? That's the data we are sending to the backend. So for that, it is using put and post are same, but the purpose is different. One is used for the first time creation and another is used for modification, creation and modification, right? So this is the put request. Okay, let's go back to our this particular board. Okay, then we have next request, which is delete request, delete. Okay, this is the delete type of the request. Okay, so let's do one thing, go back to our browser. So here we created this particular comment, right? We replied right here. But what if I want to delete it? Delete is also kind of action, but it is specifically designed for deleting the request. We can use delete method to do something else also, but it is primary use is obviously delete. So if I click on this delete button right here, it will send this 69, this particular request right here. And if I go to the headers, as you can see, the request method is delete. Okay, and the response, sorry, the payload is this context right here. The payload is basically the URL, which post I want to delete in, which reply in the post I want to delete in, right? So that content is here, and the response is nothing. Response will be like 200. Okay, let me show you here. Okay, so response is like 200. Okay, that means it is deleted. Delete request doesn't send any data back to us necessarily, right? Post send, get obviously sends, put can send, but delete will not send. We can configure to send, but usually it will not send. So that's the delete request. Okay, so let's go back to the board. Okay, so we covered the delete request also. Now let's try to understand where these requests are getting made in our application, right? So in the first, as we saw, we got the basic document, basic page, or let's say doc page. We may always make a get request for first page. If I scroll right here in the top in my browser, this request is always get request. Don't forget that, always get request. And let's talk about the static file. Static, for all of the static file fetching happens with the get request only, because we want static file, we want to get it, right? Then there is a ajax call. Now ajax call can use get also, can use post also, right? So in the ajax call there is a get also available, post also available, put is also available, delete is also available. Basically we can make all kind of requests using ajax call, right? Ajax call means fetching something asynchronously. When I click in the browser right here, fetch xhr option right here, to filter all the requests, fetch xhr, it will display only fetch request. All of these requests are the ajax request. And as you can see, some of these requests, okay, so where is the type of the request? Okay, so when I click on this request, as you can see, this is the get request, This is the get, again get. This is the post request, and obviously somewhere here we made the delete request also, right? Put request is also will be there in this particular list, and the delete request will also be there in the list. Okay, so right now I am having trouble finding the requests, but yeah, put will be there. Yeah, put is there. Delete will be also there in this particular Ajax, right? So basically, Ajax call contains get also, put also, post also, delete also, and there are other type of requests also that can made by Ajax calls, right? But for simplicity, let's stick on this one. When we will reach to the point where we need to understand those requests, we will go to those requests. Okay, then in the WebSocket, what kind of request we make? In the WebSocket, we make WebSocket request. WebSocket is a protocol itself. Okay, so we can say WES request. Okay, so WebSocket is a not like get or post request. It's a protocol itself, right? So let's say WES. Okay, if I show in the browser here, as you can see, WES option is there. If I click on that, it will show you WebSocket request, right? Most of the time, all of the chat like web WhatsApp, web Telegram, these all guys are using web sockets, okay, to communicate, constantly exchanging the messages, right? That's the web socket right here. Let's go to the next request, which is web RTC. So web RTC is also a protocol. It is not any kind of request. So we will just take web RTC, or you can say RTC. Okay, now let's go one step further and let's try to understand one step little bit deeper. Okay, and let's go to our board, and in the board session, as you can see, we have all of this. So let me just delete this particular part right here, and let's understand how exactly things happen on server side. Okay, so right now, as you can see, I am using Windows right here. Okay, so this is my Windows, nice Windows, right? And if I want to do something like browse files, what I do, I click on this file manager. So once I click on the file manager, as you can see, my recording video files are there. Okay, so similarly, for server also there is a file manager. Okay, not the GUI version of the file manager that you can see, but yes, there is a file manager on the server, file server. All right. So on the server, imagine this is the file manager. Okay, this box is file manager. Okay, so in this particular server, we have the file manager. Then we have the database also, because remember, our website is requesting some data, so it has to be stored somewhere on the server. So it can be stored in the text format in the files, or it can be stored in the database, which is most efficient way. So let's say database, okay, database. Or the nice option will be, I will click on this one. This is the feature I discovered right now. So when I do this, it will do this. Okay, so let's say database right here. Okay, so database. Okay, so what happens in the file manager? So whatever we HTML files we see on our website, for example, let's open the website right here. So on first request, so let me refresh once again and go to the all. On first request or doc request, this is the first request we made. What the response we are getting? We are getting this particular response. This is nothing but the HTML file. If you want to preview it, this is how it looks like. Okay, this is not nothing but the HTML file. That files are stored typically in the file manager of the website. If you are using Nginx to host the server, I will explain what is the Nginx, but try to understand when we use XYZ for software to host the server. Usually these files are stored in the /var /www, and then inside that there will be file. So let's say that inside that we have file with the index.html. Okay, so this file is nothing but this right here, the response we are getting on the first request. Okay, so yeah, that's what the file manager do. Okay, what is happening in the database? So when I request this particular page, or if I go back and if I let's click on this one, if I click on this one, as you can see, it is getting sending request to the server to send that particular data, right? So let me go here also, I will show you. Yeah, this is also one data is coming from the server, which is, let's say, server guy flux. As you can see, this username is there, right? So from exactly where this data is coming, it is coming from this particular guy, which is database. Okay, so when we send this particular, okay, so let me draw a new line. Okay, so when we send this particular request to this web server right here, right, then it will if it is necessary, it will get connect to the database, and it will get the data, and it will send it to me. Okay, so this is how typically it works. Okay, it is not the perfect, but typically it works. Okay, so yeah, this is the role of the database. This is what happens in the website, right? Now let's try to understand the how we see this particular page. Okay, so when we send request, this request, it doesn't necessarily go directly to this particular guy, which is file manager. It will not go to the file manager first. It will go to the web server software that is installed on the server. Okay, creating a server doesn't mean that you have website ready. You have something called web server software. Okay, so let me make this guy a little bit smaller so that we will have space. Okay, so this is the web server. Okay, I will say web server, or let's say Nginx. So Nginx is one of the web server software. We can use Nginx, we can use Apache, we can use simple HTTP, we can use Open Lightspeed. These all are the web server softwares. Okay, so in our case, we are using Nginx. So when we send request, it will first go to this guy, which is Nginx, and Nginx is hosting our website or web application. So then Nginx will connect to the this particular file manager to host our website, and obviously our website code is connected to the database, right? So what happens, when we send any request, it will go to the Nginx, and Nginx will show the request to our app. If app thinks that this requires the HTML file to send, it will send this particular HTML file from file manager. If app thinks that it requires some data to send, it will go to the database, it will get the data, and it will send back to the Nginx again, and then Nginx will give us the reply. Okay, so this is how the things function on the server side. Okay, now this is like a typical call. So you might say that what happens when I request the images, because if you check right here, if I request this particular first page, we know that it happens with this particular Nginx will share this particular index.html file, right? When we request for, let's say, fetch request, like this request, right, update request, so this request is using the database, right? So it is using this particular database to get response and then sending back through the Nginx, right? But what if we request the static files like images and fonts and JS and CSS? What happens in that case? So what happens in that case? They can be stored on the file manager also. Okay, so right now the file manager is quite messy, my file manager, but here we can have folder like, okay, so I will explain that part right here. Okay, or let's change the color. This file manager part I will explain right here. Okay, so what happens, so there is a var www folder. Inside that folder we have index dot html file, right? Similarly, we can have here folder called css. Inside css folder we can have css file, so it can be 1.css, then it can be 2.css. Similarly, we can have folder called img, where I will add my image file, right? So this is how we can host our static files also. They are in the file manager only. Okay, but in advanced website, I think this part is not visible in the screen, so let me just take it a little bit up. Yeah, it is available now. Okay, so we have css folder. Inside css folder we have css file. we have img folder. Inside the image folder we have image file. It can be 1.png, something like that, right? So now you know that where the static file is coming from. They are coming from the file manager of the web server, right? So that is just a one way to host static file. But nowadays, to make website much faster, they host static file differently on different server or on different services, right? So let me explain. So uh, as you saw this particular static file on my website, right? So where it is fetching from? It is fetching from fluxset.com, then user avatar, then fluxset.com, then server guy, and then image. So that means my static files are hosted in this particular category, okay, by using this particular solution, which is web server, okay. They are hosted on the web server. But in popular website like AWS, let me go to the AWS, or let's go to the any random website, okay. So let's say ruleout.com, right? ruleout.com, okay, that's the one website. Let's right click on the inspect element, go to the network session, and we see the files here. Let's go to the image file, okay. So here as you can see, the image files are getting loaded. So these are the image file. So as you can see here, the website URL is ruleout.com, but the static file, which is image file, which is this image file, is fetching from book.ruleout.com, and then there is a path. Why it is hosted on different subdomain? Because when we try to access all the resources from the one server, it will create additional load on the server. At the same time, let's say I use this particular method. So what happens in this particular method? When I make the request right here, it has to serve the first HTML page also. If in the HTML page, if there are images, fonts, CSS file, JS file, it has to send those files within few seconds, otherwise website will be slow, right? So to avoid this, what people do, people host static server website files on different server. So in case of ruleout also, they are hosting their static files on different server, and basically they are accessing files using subdomain, which is bug.ruleout.com, right? So we call this es3 bucket, because people use es3 bucket service to host the static files, okay. So let me show you what is s3 bucket. So let me go to the browser and I will type s3 bucket, okay. So s3 bucket. So as you can see, it is showing the Amazon S3 bucket, because Amazon is the company who implemented this kind of tech first time. So that's why they are on the top, and they are obviously they are big cloud providers. So that's why they are on the top. If you go to the images, we will see the S3 bucket images. Okay. So let's take this image as an example. Okay. So as you can see here, user is uploading something on the website, like this ruleout website, right? And then this uploaded file is getting sent to the ES3 bucket right here, okay. This zip file is uploaded by user, and now it is sending to the this S3 bucket to store. So the function, like the purpose of the S3 bucket is to store the static files, okay. So let's say in the ruleout website, if I upload any image, it will store in the ES3 bucket, okay. And ES3 is just a protocol, okay. And by the way, all of the current popular big website uses S3 bucket to store their static file, because it's fast. It doesn't add unnecessary load on our main server, right? So that's why people use S3 bucket. Okay. Okay, so that's all for this video, and see you in the next.